Um, I thought I'd try and explain a little bit about the circuit, about this, how this works. Well, the way I'm trying to get it to work. Well, it does work, but it doesn't work 100%, and I'll explain basically the technique really. So we have our waveforms, our AC wave. Oh shit, my pencil's broken. Damn. Try to. Alright, right. Bugger it. Don't you hate that when your pencil just breaks on you? Right, I'm gonna have to use something else. Hang on a minute. Right, so we've got our. This means I can't rub it out if I make a mistake, so I'm gonna have to be a little bit careful. So we have our AC waveform. I'm not going to try and explain every single phase angle but and everything. It's a bit complicated, but I mean we've got multiple coils coming in, you see. I'm just going to simplify it, but our triac circuit is triggering on basically near the peak of the waveforms, right? So this is our trigger point. I'll put a T. So we have to get the trigger point around the peaks of the waveform. So having explained that part, so what we've got is our AC input signals coming in. I'm just going to draw a box actually as a block diagram because I don't want to make it too messy. So we have our AC coming in to our coil. I'll put a C for coil. So there's the coil. So AC is coming in, and the objective is to charge the coil with a high level of inductance. We want as little resistance as possible while we're charging the coil, because any resistance would be reflected on the generator section as drag, so that would induce drag. So the objective is to charge our coil with our inductance. So I'm just going to put in IND for inductive charge. Because the coil is the opposite of a capacitor, that would basically have minimal resistance as it's first in charging the coil, and once the coil is charged then we would see resistance. Now hopefully at that point we are near the peak of our waveform, and when we're at the peak of our waveform, that is when we have our triac triggered. So our triac would be triggered, so then we have our, I'm going to put TR for triac. So the triac will be triggered at that point at that peak, and hopefully if we can get this timed, if you get it timed just right, then the induced pulse that goes back into the circuit would add acceleration to the rotary system instead of drag, which is primarily what we're aiming at and what we do see, because we see very little drag. So once that happens, that is say 1/2 cycle. Once the triac has been triggered, then the next phase is really a repeat on the other half cycle when the inductance is charged. So this would go back to the beginning sort of thing. So we will add our AC on the other half cycle coming in with little resistance, because the triac at this point would be disengaged as it flips from one half cycle to the other half cycle, at the crossover point, which is right down the middle, when we get to our center point, at that point the triac would no longer be engaged. So our next cycle will be AC coming in, inducing a charge in our inductor, and we want the inductor to be heavily saturated. That's why we need more millihenries, because we want to store as much energy as possible in that coil. If that coil is inadequate, if it's too small, it's not going to store the amount of energy required to be delivered at a delayed state into our output circuit. I didn't actually put the output circuit here, but there's we basically have an output which, when the triac is triggered, comes into the output, and that goes to the bridge rectifiers. So BR, right, so that's a bridge rectifier circuit, and that's our output. Anyway, it's a bit complicated, it's hard to explain it, because, as I say, there's multiple things going on. Our AC, for example, has got more than one coil coming in on the circuit board. As you can see from here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 coils coming in, and they're all slightly out of phase with each other. So this waveform here is simplified, but we do have multiple waveforms coming in. Each waveform is let's get another pen. So I'm just getting my red pen. So we might have another waveform coming in that's kind of slightly out of phase with that waveform, and let's see, blue one. Come off, you bugger. So we might have multiple phases coming in. So what we're doing is we're also spreading out the drag points. So we have these overlapping phases coming into the circuit, and it's very complicated. It's hard to get your head around it, but yeah. So anyway, I actually added the middle bearing back to my device, and so we're drawing more current at the moment. I'm not going to explain what's going on because I need to run in the middle bearing. I told you, the reason I put the middle bearing back in is because I was getting some flex. I was getting some oscillation on my drive shaft, and that was causing things to get out of whack, out of balance. I was getting a hell of a lot of vibration. It got really bad, and my mouse started to vibrate and dance across the table. And my capacitor on the here actually vibrated off and fell off on the floor. So I stuck the middle bearing back in, and that sorted that out. So it really needs about 3 bearings. They're pretty heavy, these rotor drums. What was happening was it was resonating. I was getting an oscillation on the shaft, and it was starting to bend, resonate. The 6mm drive shaft isn't really strong enough. I really need to go up to a bigger diameter, like 8mm. Really, but I'm not going to redesign it all just for that. I mean, I've just stuck the middle bearing back in for now. If this thing gets longer, it needs to have a thicker, wider drive shaft, probably about as thick as this pen actually. Anyway, just a little explanation on how this works. So that's all for now.